Welcome everyone to our third Alumni Matters video, in which we'll be chatting to several alumni and learning more about their careers, their thoughts on some of the key challenges our world is facing, and discovering how they are helping to shape it into a healthier, fairer and greener place. My name is Megan Meyer, Alumni Communications Officer at the University of Exeter, and today we are joined by alumni Fiona Coughlan. She studied English with French at Exeter and now works as Head of Climate Diplomacy at the Commonwealth and Development Office. Each year, the impact of climate change is being felt more strongly all around the world, and with the start of a new year and the growing need to consider our impact on the planet, we're delighted to be able to chat to Fiona today about her work in this area. So thank you so much for joining us, Fiona, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
I guess first of all, it'd be lovely to know sort of what drew you to working in the area of policy work and your sort of current focus on climate and development.
Well, doing an English degree, I initially was sort of really thinking about going into journalism. And then I was also quite attracted to law. None of my family were civil servants, still aren't. So I hadn't really thought about the civil service until I went to a careers talk actually at Exeter about the graduate scheme called the Fast Stream. I thought that sounded really interesting, and it has turned out to bring together, elements of journalistic activities and skills alongside sort of some of that legal aspect. I found it a really nice marriage of the two. But since I've also found out that there's absolutely loads of ways into the civil service, and it's not the sort of really difficult place to get into that I had originally thought.
No, that's really good to know, because I think sometimes it does seem a bit like, how on earth do you get in the door
Yes.
with that area?
Yeah, it does. It seems like a really impenetrable place, but it's not at all. And I would just say then straight off the bat that I think my biggest advice on that is to go in at an administrative level. So sign up to Guardian Jobs, other places that you can find job recruitments out there for the civil service. And they do bulk recruitments at the lower grades. And if you're a university graduate, you can expect to be in an administrative job at the start, but people can move up very quickly, dependent on how well they're performing and how much they want to commit. So it's definitely a very good way into the civil service, as well as going through the formal sort of graduate scheme.
Fiona, you've previously also worked on a project called the Climate Action for Resilient Asia, the CARA programme, which seemed particularly poignant and interesting at the moment. I just wondered whether you could tell me and our alumni listeners a little bit more about that and how you're involved and sort of what that's achieved so far.
Yeah, so I was really privileged to be able to be overall SRO for a set of programmes, which included this programme. It was announced at COP26 in Glasgow, and it committed the UK to up to £274 million on activities to support the resilience of the Indo-Pacific region against the effects of climate. So one of the main ambitions of the programme was to support up to 14.4 million people to better adapt to the effects of climate change. And the programme has got 6 main aspects. So we're really excited to be able to work with the UK Met Office. I know we've got a really strong relationship with Exeter University for obvious reasons, but also the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank and the UN. And also an excellent organisation called ICIMOD that are based in Nepal and are focused on the protection of the glacial region in the Hindu Himalayan Kush, which is a extremely vulnerable region to climate change, with many, many millions of people living just below that glacial zone.
Wow.
So a real sort of hot spot for joint activity with a range of countries.
Wow, that sounds like a really huge sort of spanning area. So how did you sort of get involved with that then in your role? Was that just a project that came up that you got assigned to, or were you particularly sort of interested in that area?
So I started doing programming when I worked in the Home Office. So I started my career in the civil service on the graduate scheme on the Fast Stream. My first department was the Home Office. In that department, I learned a lot of really great things about core civil service skills. And a lot of departments actually do international work now. I've been really struck recently by the fact that DEFRA, who do all the environmental rural affairs, they have a really strong international arm on climate. And of course, we've got a new department, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, who actually lead our climate negotiations internationally. So our lead negotiators at COP28. So I got really into programming there. I loved the delivery aspect, actually working with partners to deliver something. And I knew that DFID were the leading entity, sometimes said globally, on development. And so I was really pleased to be able to join DFID and worked there for a couple of years before we moved into what is now the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, where I had also previously worked and done a number of postings. So this role came up where I was able to oversee a set of programs, which included climate, but also humanitarian work on women and girls, gender equality, and on the reduction of human trafficking and child labour. So I was delighted to be able to do that role. And this was one of two programs that we launched during my time in that role, alongside another one at COP28, which was about climate resilient infrastructure, working with the ADB, the Asian Development Bank, to finance major infrastructure projects in the Indo-Pacific region that were resilient to the impacts of climate and were also green.
Yeah, and I can imagine with those type of projects, it is really great to be working with a lot of different partners, because it's sort of almost a large, you're not going to fix some of these problems in a couple of months. You need to be setting up really resilient structures and people that are going to be able to help.
That's why in the team that designed the programme, we had a mix of colleagues who were technical experts alongside generalist civil servants. So I'm a generalist civil servant, and there are many different pathways for someone wanting to come and do climate work in government. One of them is to be a generalist, but you can also come in on an economist far stream, and you can also come in and get accredited to our climate cadre, and that then gives you the opportunity to do more technical roles. And it's colleagues in those technical roles that help to design this programme, and they use guidance of global sort of good practice to create a major program like this, which, as you said, it needs to be able to deliver at scale change, and we need to do it quite quickly. So that's why we determined it was really useful to work with entities like the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, who are able to deliver at scale and are both very ambitious now at looking to green all of their work.
What do you sort of feel, I know you've sort of moved on in terms of your portfolio a bit now, that those sort of climate projects have achieved so far since they've been set up? Because I know that you were saying that they're set up for a number of years after the last COP, but sort of at this point, where do you sort of feel like those projects are at the moment?
So both projects are continuing to sort of initiate, and there's, as I said, there's quite a lot of different strands to them all. So I won't go into all of the sort of outcomes, because outcome level change takes time. What I would definitely suggest is, if people are interested, you can look up climate action for resilient Asia, and the whole sort of press statements of what the outcomes are of the programme will come up on Google. But I'd also like just to direct any listeners to two things that the government is releasing very soon that will give you lots of information about what's happening and what the government's actions are on climate. One is a written ministerial statement, which is about our international climate finance. So the UK is committed to spend £1.6 billion on international climate finance. And we set out a statement about that 11.6 billion soon. And likewise, the Climate Change Committee has done a report on the UK's activities, and we're also releasing a response to that report. So that will cover everything the UK is doing domestically and also our international angle of work. So just to have a good summary, you can always go on gov.uk and have a look at some of the latest publications. I also really recommend going on there because you can see speeches. We have done some really exciting stuff on biodiversity credits. So trying to sort of create an equivalent to sort of carbon credits. So there's a new market for that. And we're also trying to now do the same for biodiversity. So putting a value on that really important natural resource. So some exciting new things are taking place.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And we'll make sure to include those links in the description for this video and for our audio listeners, so people can go away and learn a bit more about all of those aspects. Because I know, like you say, those outcomes can take time. So it's great if people can have a place to come back and find out more as they develop. And Fiona, you're now working as joint head of climate diplomacy department. It'd be great to hear about what that work in that role entails in regards to sort of climate and making the world a greener place. How's that been for you?
Yes, it's really fun, a great team, and it's really good to work across government departments as well. So in the FCDO, we work really closely with DEFRA, with this Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, and other government departments, and of course the Cabinet Office, because Number 10 have got a very strong interest in all of this, and we need to prepare the Prime Minister. One of the key things that I'm responsible for is making sure that our network of embassies and high commissions have got the information that they need on the UK government policy on climate, and also what we're trying to achieve at COP, working with other countries to be able to deliver a really effective outcome. So you may have heard about what we call diptels, diplomatic telegrams. Sometimes end up getting leaked to the press, but they are internal memos that basically go out to the network and they share instructions and information. So a key part of my role is making sure that we're using our internal systems to give our posts and all the hardworking people out there in our networks what they need to be able to go out, have really good conversations with their host governments about the things that we think really matter on climate, and really importantly to understand where those countries are coming from, because as you said, it's so key. This is something that we all have to do together, and we really need to understand where other countries are coming from and what they need to be able to adapt best to the effects of climate change and to reduce their emissions.
Yeah, because it's not something any of us are doing in isolation. What we can do can help someone else, and having that information about what their key priorities and resources are is crucial. So it sounds a very exciting role, and hopefully lots more great collaboration to come for you as well. It's such an important area. Working climate change is affecting us here in the UK and around the world, and that's just getting sort of more prominent and sometimes more terrifying. I was just going to sort of check in with, as it worsens and the need to address it grows more pressing, how do you stay hopeful and motivated working in this area?
I think it's a really good question, and I know everyone is grappling with that. Like, I find it really quite stark to think that we need to have global emissions peaking by 2025. So for me, working actively in my day job on the positive aspects of trying to push forward a solution really helps. In my personal life, I found it really useful to try to take small steps to try to be more sustainable. So using more ecologically friendly cleaning products, hair care products. And I also bought my first car, which is an electric car, last year. And things like that, small things that I can control, I find really helps. But yes, working in this career also really helps me to feel like I'm taking some action. But I would also sort of direct people to Al Gore, his recent comments. We don't have the time to be paralyzed about this. We don't have that. We have to just keep going. And I think what inspires me is listening to, the Earthshot Prize winners. That is one of a number of great initiatives where we are getting great ideas through, and technology is improving all the time. And we've got lots of brilliant ideas from lots of very intelligent people. So I know that we can, use everything we have, and the technology can be there. We just need to work together.
It's definitely, I think that's one of the things that does keep things hopeful, is that we're not doing it on our own. There are other people who care about it too, and it's about coming together. And on that note, the sort of last question that I wanted to ask you is, how can University of Exeter alumni, supporters, general listeners to this video today make 2024 count in terms of their greener decisions and be making an impact?
So I think obviously 2024 is a general election year. So the most important thing that any individual, based in the UK, can do is really consider what their own personal priorities are for this agenda, and read what each of the parties are proposing on their priorities. That's the single most impactful thing that is going to make a difference for the next period, and that will affect our spending and the policies of, obviously, the government that comes into power. So I would say that's the single most important thing.
Definitely. And then obviously the sort of smaller things that you were mentioning you yourself were doing around, like, considering the products that people are using and things. There's stuff that I guess all of us can do on a daily basis, even if we're not working in the area of policy and government, that can be adding up and in parallel to wider global agenda.
Yeah, and one that I didn't mention, obviously, but it's absolutely huge, is what we eat. I'm on a pathway to veganism, is what I like to say, because I am trying to stop eating meat, reduce my dairy product use, but there is obviously new initiatives all the time that could also potentially mean that that's less impactful. But right now, something that can really help our climate goals is to reduce our meat consumption.
Yeah, and that's something that people can be doing, even if they're not, like you say, on that pathway to veganism or taking it completely. There's smaller steps that people can be doing in their daily week of reducing
Exactly. We don't have to tell ourselves that we have to stop everything. It's about, if we all make these changes, and maybe treat ourselves, to meats or fish on certain days of the week, then that can also make a really big change at the global level.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Fiona. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners before we finish up our chat today?
Just come and work with us. It's such a great career. You can have any interest, and there is somewhere in the civil service that will be able to deliver that for you. And it's a very engaging job. Every day is different. It's really interesting, and you get to work with people at the top of their game. So I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for your time today and for sharing your experiences of your career and your work. I hope everyone has enjoyed watching and listening today to the video, and keep your eyes peeled on our website and our socials for our next Alumni Matters video launching in a few months. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Thanks, Megan.